I think there's only one place to start this week, and it is on one in which things could change a lot, because even this time last week, we didn't think there was any immediate prospect of there being armed conflict between Iran and Israel. And here we are now at a very grave precipice.
I think for some of our listeners, actually, I'm looking forward to them hearing this discussion, because it can be confusing how quickly it's moving.
Yeah, well, to try and deconstruct all of that, we have been joined today by Fawaz Gerges, who is a professor of international politics at the London School of Economics. And we started by asking him how he believed we got to this point so quickly.
Well, I mean, I don't think it was very quickly at all. The Israeli Prime Minister has been gunning to attack Iran since 2012. In 2015, when Barack Obama signed the nuclear deal with Iran and the great powers, the Obama administration was so much concerned that Benjamin Netanyahu was planning to attack Iran that Obama and his senior advisors had to intervene directly to dissuade Benjamin Netanyahu from sabotaging the 2015 nuclear deal. And if you read the memoirs of Barack Obama and his senior advisors, they really tell us a great deal about the strategic planning that Israel was doing in order to prevent the United States and the great powers from signing a deal with Iran. What has changed? What has changed is you have Donald Trump in power. What has changed is the 7th of October, Hamas attacks on Israel. What has changed now is that Benjamin Netanyahu believes he's really basically changing the face of the Middle East. Israel now acts like a mini imperial power. Benjamin Netanyahu in the past 2 years, he has been able to outmaneuver and outsmart Joe Biden on Gaza, and now he has outmaneuvered and outsmarted Donald Trump on Iran. So what has changed are the regional conditions and how Israel views its security and views itself as a great power that it could really reshaping the Middle East in its own image.
Fawaz, it's interesting you mentioned Benjamin Netanyahu's obsession with Iran's nuclear program. I think people will have seen clips go viral over the course of the week of him speaking about this, going back to the early 90s, in fact, about saying that Iran is weeks away from an atomic bomb. In terms of undermining the diplomatic efforts, Donald Trump and his administration had been really talking up the fact that they were very close to getting a deal, that they were eager to get a deal. You were starting to see Iranian government figures as well say, look, we're hopeful, we're actually optimistic of doing this. How much of what Netanyahu has done by launching these strikes on Iran been an effort to not actually, not just attack Iran, but to completely kill off that diplomatic effort by the United States and other countries?
I mean, what happened in the past 2 months was really very important for all of us. The United States and Iran were building a trust. Both sides were narrowing the gap. Both Iranian and American officials made it very clear that basically they were making progress in the talks on finding a way out of the deadlock between the United States and Iran. Just think about it for a minute. Last Sunday, the Iranian foreign minister was supposed to meet with Donald Trump's envoy in Oman on Sunday to continue the talks. On Friday, Benjamin Netanyahu basically preempted the talks and launched all-out war against Iran. I mean, look, at the end of the day, for your own viewers, this was a preemptive, unilateral attack by an armed nuclear state. Israel is the only nuclear armed state in the region. According to American intelligence assessment, Israel has between 75 and 200 nuclear devices. A unilateral attack against a sovereign state that was engaged in diplomatic talks with the United States and basically bridging the divide with the United States. So in a way, I think the tactical, the short-term goal of Benjamin Netanyahu was to sabotage the talks between the United States and Iran, to divert attention from the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, but Benjamin Netanyahu has a greater strategic aim. And now it's coming out. I mean, he and his advisors, they want regime change in Tehran. In fact, even the French president, a couple of days ago, Macron, he said, look, he was concerned that Israel is not only attacking the nuclear facilities of Iran, was attacking the industrial complex, gas, oil, police stations, high-rising building. railways. Literally trying to destroy as much as it could. And in the wishful thinking, in the hope that somehow its destruction of the infrastructure, the industrial, military, and civilian infrastructure could really bring about the toppling of the Iranian regime.
Once again, we see people on the move in search for safety again, families, individuals, children, all being displaced from their homes. What's happening there? Where do they go from here?
I think this is really the heartbreak of the whole story. This is an aerial warfare. You're not talking about armies. Israel is thousands of miles away from Iran. So what you have now is what I call the war of cities. Israel has been bombing. Israel says it's really carrying out surgical attacks. Yet human rights organizations say that more than 600 civilians have been killed in Iran in the past 6 days, including a poet. Her name is Peruna Abbasi, a dancer, academics, and also 24 Israeli civilians have been killed. Of course, the reason why there are many more Iranians, civilians being killed, because you have an asymmetry of power. Iran does not have an air force. It does not really have the technology that Israel and the United States and its Western allies have. So Israel controls the skies of Iran. It could do whatever it wants. So if this war continues, and I think it's going to continue for a long time, sadly and tragically, I think you're going to see tens of thousands of civilians killed, mainly in Iran, but also in Israel as well.
In terms of where Iran is at the moment, obviously its proxies or the groups it propped up in terms of Hezbollah and Hamas have been engaged with Israel for a long time. They've been weakened somewhat. Allies in Syria have also gone by the wayside. Where is Iran militarily and in terms of the strength of that regime at this point in time? And then secondly, on the same point, Iran has said repeatedly that it doesn't want a nuclear weapon, and a lot of officials from the West, including from the United States, say we actually buy that. I mean, why should the world be so concerned about Iran having a nuclear weapon? And actually, should we believe them when they say they don't actually want one?
I think you put your finger on the key question now. And the key question, how close was Iran to having the capabilities to build a nuclear weapon? Let's talk about facts. A combined assessment by the US intelligence community, but by more than a dozen intelligence communities. The CNN reported on this 2 days ago. It's part of open information. It found that Iran was not actively pursuing a nuclear weapon, and Iran was at least 3 years away from having the capabilities to build a nuclear weapon. This is not a pontificating professor at the London School of Economics telling you that. This is the combined assessment by US intelligence agencies. And in March, the director of the US intelligence community, this is the top woman, told the American Congress that the assessment of the US intelligence community is Iran was not pursuing a nuclear weapon. And when President Trump was asked 2 days ago about what his director of intelligence said, guess what he said? He said, I don't care what he said. Iran is very close to building a nuclear weapon. And this reminds me of what I call the Iraq moment, 2003. The neoconservatives, including Benjamin Netanyahu, an honorary card-carrying member of the neoconservative movement, they manufactured a lie about weapons of mass destruction, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, in order to invade and occupy Iraq. And we all thought, myself included, I was very much involved in the debate in the United States in 2003, that somehow the United States learned the hard lessons, that the United States really would not commit the same strategic miscalculation, but it seems to me the United States is heading towards war with eyes wide open. As the question about Iran capabilities, I think Israel has been able to do a great deal of damage to Iran. Iran has been under one of the most punishing sanctions regimes in the world. It does not really have an air force. Can you imagine a country that does not have an air force? It does not have any air defense system. It does not have the technology. You cannot compare Iran to Israel. Israel is a nuclear armed power. Israel has one of the largest, most sophisticated air force in the world after the United States. 500 American-built bombers, including F-35. Technology. Israel has been able to infiltrate the entire decision-making process of Iran. Iran is bleeding. Iran is under siege. Iran is trying to find a way out, is desperate to have a diplomatic solution. But why should Benjamin Netanyahu basically accept any negotiated settlement as long as he have a green light from Donald Trump? And on Wednesday, Donald Trump said, quote unquote, I told Benjamin Netanyahu to continue his war on Iran. So the war will not end unless Donald Trump basically intervenes directly. And it seems to me that Donald Trump now is edging toward the United States, in fact, joining Israel's war on Iran, as opposed to really trying to pressure Netanyahu to stop the war.
That's so interesting, Fawaz, because Donald Trump had campaigned back when he first ran for president and when he ran for president this time, no more endless wars in the Middle East. So it's been interesting that the term regime change has been used so openly in the US media. I saw the son of the former Shah of Iran was wheeled out on talk shows in the UK over the weekend. So you're starting to see, I wonder what your thoughts are on this. The fact is that we're starting to see across the media, like we did in the build-up to Iraq, like we did in the build-up to the regime change effort in Libya, for example, as well, and in Afghanistan, voices in the Western media from places which are otherwise credible, who are really pushing for the Western powers to get involved in regime change in the Middle East, despite what happened all the other times that the West has done that.
You know, as an academic who has lived most of his life in the United States, I had never imagined that the United States would basically be where it is today. I had thought, like many of my colleagues as an American, that the United States has learned the key lesson of its global war on terror and of the war of choice in Iraq. And in particular, as you said, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has repeatedly criticized his predecessors, whether it's George W. Bush or Barack Obama, because they entangled the United States in forever wars. That was his key doctrinal foreign policy idea. And I think many people cheered Donald Trump because he's America's first, as opposed to really nation building in the world. Yet he finds himself now, Donald Trump is repeating the same monstrous miscalculation that his predecessors did commit. And in fact,
I'm sorry to judge Fawaz, but just on that point, because I think it is a very salient one. A lot of people will wonder why, if it is the genuine belief of the American intelligence services that Iran was not close to having nuclear weapons capability, and given that America seemed to have been so blindsided by all this escalating last Friday, why is it that you think Donald Trump seems so almost slavishly minded to intervene in this kind of uncharacteristic way?
I mean, you asked me a difficult question. I really don't have a convincing answer for you, but let me try. I think what we know about Donald Trump is that he is a man who likes winners. Donald Trump likes strong men. Donald Trump wants to really bandwagon with winners. And what Donald Trump initially he opposed, as you know, he opposed an Israeli attack on Iran. He made it very clearly. But now that Israel launched the attack, he thinks that Benjamin Netanyahu is winning. He thinks that Israel has the momentum, that somehow he wants to be part of the winning team. So he really is bandwagoning with Israel. He's not, even though there's a mini civil war within the Trump's power base, the MAGA Trump. So we might be ahead of ourselves. I think domestic politics in the United States, at least within the Republican Party, Donald Trump might basically change his mind. But at the end of the day, I think what we are seeing is that Donald Trump swept away by the tide of victory. And remember, Benjamin Netanyahu is a brilliant strategist. He's saying to Israel and the United States, we are changing the face of the Middle East. We are changing the face of the world. And come join us. And when he was asked about America's first, Benjamin Netanyahu's response to Americans, he said, well, I understand America's first, but I don't understand America's dead. In a way, he was really triggering a kind of response from Donald Trump, because Donald Trump hates, losers, and he wants to be a winner. So that's my explanation, but it's not convincing because it's very difficult to read Donald Trump's mind. It really is.
Yeah, Fawaz, I think probably as a group of people in our 30s, I don't think any of us can remember a time where there's been more uncertainty or, so many quick changes in the situation in terms of the Middle East. I'm wondering for yourself, would you echo that as well? And are you worried about what happens next?
I'm really extremely worried, by the way. I'm extremely worried because after 19 months of so much pain and loss in Gaza, 55,000 Palestinians have been killed, 16,000 children, 12,000 women. The entire population of Gaza is on the verge of starvation. Israel has weaponized food and medicine and fuel. I would have thought that the world now would try to resolve Gaza. And look, all of us now, we're talking about Israel's war on Iran. In a way, Benjamin Netanyahu has succeeded. And if strategic escalation, if the United States joins the fray in Iran, this could really be catastrophic. Iran is a huge state. Iran is a civilizational state. Iran, you're talking about 90 million people. Iranians are very proud, very nationalistic. They rally around the flag when their country and sovereignty and nation is under attack. And Iraq, even though it does not really have the same capabilities as Israel, could rack the political economy of energy, could block and mine the Strait of Hormuz, could really prevent lane shippings, commercial shippings in the region, could affect the world economy. Not to mention the spillover effects into the region itself, and allowing Israel to do exactly what it wants to do in Gaza, probably displacing the 2.2 million Palestinians outside of the Gaza Strip.